Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Undefined. I am your host, Bella Steyer, and I have a very special guest. I am talking to Drew Copeland from Sister Hazel. How are you doing today, Drew?
I am doing great, Bella. So good to see you.
So good to see you too. I was just telling Drew how I'm a big fan of my family, comes from a big fan of hazelnuts, as you guys like to call them, and it's been a very exciting year for the band. So you have a new album coming out November 15th called Sand, Sea, Crash, and Debris. And tell
Yes.
us a little bit more about that.
This has been kind of an ongoing process. We've been in a really good creative flow for a while. And so instead of like setting aside a big chunk of time and going in and recording a whole album, we've kind of been going in as we go. And so we'll tour, go do some shows, and then we'll hit the studio for a couple of days and been kind of recording songs, one at a time. And it's just been such the creative vibe has been really good. And this collection of songs just kind of started, we have, with all of us writing songs now, we have a pretty eclectic and large grouping of songs. But as we were going through and picking these songs, that they've kind of rounded out. It's like an old school record where, if you had gotten the disc or the tape or the whatever it would be, you would listen through to the whole thing. People don't really listen to music that way anymore. So we've been kind of releasing a song at a time over the last several months, and we're just really excited about the songs. It's been a really fun adventure, kind of making these one at a time and putting them out, and just seeing the reaction of our fans. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and they're great. I love all the singles so far. Coconut Trees is definitely a highlight, and
All
I
right.
just love all the new music from you guys. And I wanted to talk about more. So you said all of you guys are writing, and I follow you closely on social media. When you'll post about the song, it's usually like if Ken wrote it, he'll write a blurb, or Ryan or you. So when you all are writing, do you just like come to the studio and you have like a stack of songs and you narrow it down, or do you like take turns of okay, who's gonna do this, or how does that kind of work when you have a lot of people writing in the band?
One of the really cool things about being together for this long is that we don't have that stress anymore about am I going to get heard? You know what I mean? We know that eventually it's going to come around to where uh the best song is going to rise to the top, the better songs are going to rise to the top, or the ones that make the collection more complete will end up together. And so we really work hard at, what feels good at the moment. And I don't think anybody holds anything too precious. I mean, obviously, as someone that's creative and an artist, when you do create something, it is a little personal. Like you want people to like it. But everybody is so talented and brings so much to the table that it's just been a really cool method of kind of listening through to the songs. And if somebody's championing a song, like if somebody really loves a song, they're like, hey, I have a thing for this song. I want you guys to listen to me and hear what I have to say about this. Then we kind of give that guy the nod. It's kind of like, hey man, this guy's passionate about this. He sees something in this song. Let's follow that. So it's been really good. We've had a good time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And another thing I wanted to highlight about this year being a big one for you guys is that it's your 30th anniversary. And we were just talking about how well you guys get along with the writing process. But one of the things I admire the most about Sister Hazel is that 30 years, same five guys. I know you have Dave, who had joined 10 years ago and he plays with y'all live. But I mean, to have the same lineup for that many years, to tour as much as you guys do, to do all the events and everything, like, what have been some kind of, I don't know about tips, or how has it been like for you guys when you're living on the road several days out of the year, spending so much time together? How do you still kind of have that friendship and that brotherhood after all this time?
There are a lot of things that we've grown through that enabled us to stay together. But honestly, I feel really blessed that it's the guys that I'm with because we've all been grounded. We've all stayed grounded through the process, even during the crazy times when we were flying all over the country and all over the world and doing late night television and everything else. We all stayed kind of grounded with the people around us we had a good group of people around us. Um, but at this point, I mean, we're like brothers. I mean, so there are still times when we have arguments and disagreements and things like that, and we're mad at each other or whatever. But we're all kind of heading the same direction. We're all married. We all have kids, ranging from all kind of different ages, but we're all very thankful to get to do what we do for a living. And if any of us, and we all have been, but if any of us are on our heels, if something is going on in our lives that we need support, the other guys always rally to that. So it's one of those things where we made it through the really rough, crazy period, back when we were younger, and it seemed like the celebrity light was really being shined on us. We made it through those crazy times, and now we're just kind of a family, doing what we do. So it's a lot of the things that keep us together too is that we all have a really good sense of humor. So we laugh a lot when we're out, and we all still love playing live. I mean, when we get on stage, now don't get me wrong, there are some nights when you're just not feeling it, but for the most part, that's the most fun to us is when we get on stage and
Mhm.
just kind of we do what we do. And so those are the things I think that has enabled us to stay together for 30 years.
I think it really, like, your studio albums are really great, but I think Sister Hazel also just shines. I feel like you guys are a live band. You're a
Yeah.
band that I feel like everybody should see live because there's just something so special. One of my favorite albums that you guys put out was the live album that came out. I don't know if it was like 2003 or something. Like, oh, so many times a year, my dad will always just put that on. And I'll be like, "Oh, it's so good. We'll have to listen to it front to back. We can never just listen to a little bit of it." And that's because that just is a testament to how good your live shows are, and that
Thank you.
humor too. You can just see that. I mean, I even remember seeing during the pandemic, you and Ken were still together on the porch, just joking, playing songs together. It's
Yeah.
like even in times like that where you could have separate space or that alone time, it just shows how much you enjoy being together. And I think it shines through the music as well. When you are with a
Thank you.
bunch of people and you're really enjoying it, I think that makes such a huge difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about the origins of the band too. What sticks out to me is I grew up in Florida, and you guys are from Florida. You have Gainesville roots. You and Ken, you met at UF. You met like a tailgate. You would play a bunch of sorority and fraternity shows together. I
Yeah.
want to hear more about the early days. Like, so it started just the two of you, and how did just the band all come together, and how important was Florida to that story? Because I know it is a big, even to this day, you have a lot of shows and things that center around Florida, including Lyrics for Life, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Ken and I met. We both had a lot of mutual friends, but we met at a tailgating party for a University of Florida, University of Tennessee football game. So we were at a friend's place right across from the stadium, and Ken picked up a guitar and started playing "Peaceful Easy Feeling," and I just started singing harmonies with him and all of our friends. Now, granted, everyone was fairly socially lubricated, but I started singing harmonies, and everybody's like, "Man, you guys sound great," and we kind of hit it off right from the get-go, and eventually started doing some acoustic shows together, and at some point during the process, we had been doing that for a couple of years, and Ken said, I really want to put together a band around, kind of the music that he was writing at the time, and and honestly, I was graduating from UF, so I was like, well, I'll stick in it for a while, but I'm going to get a job and go, go on with life. And as things happened, uh I stayed in the band, and a couple of years later we ended up with a record deal. And so Jet, our bass player, he was the first
Mhm.
guy to actually respond to a flyer that Ken had put up looking for band members. And so he joined, and eventually we got Mark Trojanowski, the drummer, and then Ryan was the last piece. Ryan had been playing with us on and off in different circumstances, but he was in a band called Black Creek, and he decided to make the move over with us, and then that was it. We had found the magic, and so everything just kind of started to take off from there. So, and Florida's always been special to us because Gainesville was where we all met.
Mhm.
Four of the five of us actually went to the University of Florida. Mark is not a Florida grad, but he, we've adopted him. Yeah. So yeah, so Florida's still really special to us when we come back to the state. It just feels like home, you know.
hmm Do you live in Florida currently, or did you end up
Yeah,
making them? Oh, awesome. Yeah,
I'm
I
in
thought
Gainesville
so.
right now. Yeah, Ken and I still live
Awesome.
in Gainesville. Our bass player lives down in Barris lives down in the Palm Beach area.
Mhm.
Um, Mark lives in Atlanta, and Ryan lives up in DC. So
Wow.
we're all kind of spread out a little bit now.
Yeah, and I want to kind of hear more about those early days, like when you guys were just playing at UF. How did that come about? Were you just kind of like the house band for a lot of parties, or were you just kind of playing wherever, like the local bars? How did that happen when you started growing your live audience?
So we would literally go out and promote ourselves. So we would take, our cassette or whatever we had of our music, and we'd go in and talk to the club owners or wherever it was that we were going to play, and we'd put up flyers sometimes inviting people to come, and then we would, if a sorority or a fraternity called us and wanted to book a party, we would do that. We all kind of had jobs as well at the same time during that time period, so it was kind of we were working on the weekends really when we could. Um, and then eventually we kind of dove in, and that was our main gig was doing the band stuff, and kind of started touring, and word got out, and we kept doing these little circles kind of around Gainesville, and the circles kept getting bigger and bigger, and we just started building a following. That's really kind of how we did it.
I love it. And another thing I wanted to talk about that is related to Gainesville is I know that you guys are all really big Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers fans, and it's been a really big influence to the band. And you're actually friends with Stan Lynch from the Heartbreakers. I kind of want to hear more about that. How did you meet him? And then also just how influential that music has been for you personally.
Yeah, so and it's ironic because I was just talking to Stan just a couple of minutes ago. We're going to
Wow.
on Thursday night. So but Stan reached out shortly after we got the record deal with Universal and just said, "Hey, from one Gainesville guy to another, congratulations on sign." And we all gathered around. This is back when phones still hung up on the
Mhm.
wall. But we all gathered around the phone and we're listening, and Stan was like, "Hey, congratulations!" And we were all like, we were like giddy school kids. We were like, Stan Lynch on the phone. But like he gave us his number and said, "Look, if you ever need anything, please call me." And I put his number in speed dial, and leaned on him a lot over the last 30 years because he was a guy that had been in a band, been in several bands, and knew what it took to make that happen and to make the relationships work. And he would share with me the things that he was successful at and the things that caused problems for him, and what he would do, what he wouldn't do. And so that relationship, besides all the musical influence as well, which he and I wrote a ton of songs together, and he actually produced my solo record.
Yes,
um,
I love your solo record, by the way. I just wanted to say it's great.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Yeah, I'm really proud of it. And so he's just been a huge influence, and he's like a brother to me now. I mean, we literally, he still has his place just outside of Gainesville, and he has a place over at Crescent Beach, and we stay in touch a lot. And but yeah, that band, um, you know what, words really don't adequately describe the influence that that band had on us. Not just because of how amazing the songs were and the
Mhm.
band was that they made a specific sound together, um, but just the idea that these guys from where we came from could rise up and do what they did. It was just always a huge influence for us. And in the songwriting, Tom was such an incredible songwriter. I can't overstate how beautifully he made something sound so simple, but it was so creative and so unique. Um, and that honestly, I still chase that. 30 years later, I'm chasing how to write a song that sounds like it's really simple, but it's really brilliant. Like I haven't done that yet. I hope to at some point before I'm done. But yeah, such an incredible influence on all of us, and I'm very thankful that Stan and I are still really close.
Wow, that is just such a great story. I loved hearing that. Did you ever get to meet Tom Petty or did you just see
Never
him on?
did. No, never got to. It was one of our bucket list things to get a chance to open for them. Even, Stan obviously wasn't in the band anymore, but
Mhm.
we really thought that having the connections, Gainesville being our connection, and Tom kind of circling back. And for a long time, Tom didn't really recognize his roots with Gainesville for a long time. Not for any other reason than he was, out in California and living his life and had a
Mhm.
wife, kids, and a career. But we thought once he kind of started acknowledging that connection again, that maybe we would get a chance to at least do a show together somewhere. But yeah, that never happened, unfortunately.
Aw. Well, I think
Yeah,
that is still awesome that you've had that relationship with Stan, and that was just really
absolutely.
really cool to hear about. I love talking to my guests about specific music that inspires them, because of course, as like the listener, your music inspires us, but to hear from a creative what kind of you're listening to, what's your inspiration, I always think is awesome.
Yeah,
Great. And I think one thing that you do share in common with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, if I'm gonna say, is that I feel like you both have fostered these amazing fan communities of just diehard fans that will support no matter what. And what is so cool about Sister Hazel specifically is that every year you guys have multiple events dedicated solely for the fans, and then other artists that you'll have play, like the Rock Boat, which it's been over 20 years since the Rock Boat. That's happening in
yeah,
January.
yeah,
Lyrics for Life, which is a charity benefit that you guys play every year. I would like to talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then Camp Hazelnut, the Hang in South Carolina, the Christmas
yeah.
one. I mean, so when you were first started, when you realized how your fan base was growing, what led to the decision? Like, not only are we going to have, the Rock Boat, but we're going to make events for our fans, but also we're going to work with our fans to give back, and with like what you do with Camp Hazelnut with Lyrics for Life, if you want to tell a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I don't know any other way than what we've always done. Even when we started out, there was always this ingrained appreciation for the people that came out to see us, that spent their money and their time to come watch us play, or to buy our record, or to buy a t-shirt or whatever else. We've always, I mean, all of us, there's always been this kind of understanding that nobody owes us anything. Like, everything that's happening is a blessing, and that these people are taking their time and appreciating what we do. So, for instance, I remember back in the day, when we were first starting out, we played a club up in Tallahassee called Floyd's Music Store, and
Mhm.
uh, the place that we stayed in this old hotel right across the street, and you could look out. If you went out on the balcony, you could see the club, and you could see where people would line up and stuff. And I'll never forget, we'd started kind of selling that place out, and we were playing there. It might have been a Friday night, and like early in the evening, we went out on the balcony, and there was a line like down the street, like of people waiting to get in. And we were all fired up, and that makes it even more exciting when you know that it's going to be a fun show. And so we ordered a bunch of pizzas and walked down there and like handed out pizza to all these people that were waiting in line to see us play. Because we were just thankful, we were like, hey man, anybody want something to eat? And it was really cool because all these people were taking their time and their money to come see us play. And we just, as another show of gratitude, we just went and handed out a bunch of food. So that's kind of been our mode of operation from the get-go, is that make sure that we show our appreciation to our fans. So then when we came up with the idea for the Rock Boat, that was another chance for us to be somewhere for an extended period of time, and be able to mingle with our fans and get to know people and shake hands and say thank you and play these shows, and maybe do a couple of different things that aren't just, a set list of our songs. Like, we try to be creative with whatever the event calls for. And then the other ones just kind of happened. Lyrics for Life is a charity of ours that we decided all of the band members have had their lives affected by cancer in one way or another. And my dad had colon cancer, and he was a colon cancer survivor, which is great. And Ken lost a brother
Yes.
to cancer. And
Mhm.
so when we were looking at ways to give back, that one for us was kind of a no-brainer. And so we started Lyrics for Life, and we had done a series of acoustic events, different places, and kind of the signature of Lyrics for Life was to get other artists to write the lyrics to some of their biggest songs, on anything that they could think of, whether it was a napkin or Edwin wrote, "I'll be like on a plane propeller," and
I love it.
have written on surfboards and all kind of different stuff, and then we auction that off and donate that money. Um, and then so that's something that we continue to do. And the Camp Hazelnut actually started out as another version of like the Hazelnut Hang and the Rock Boat, where it was started with the idea of making it another fan-driven event, but it was going to be
Yes.
about camping and sitting around the campfire and playing acoustic songs and having a band show in the dance hall at night, that kind of thing at Camp Crystal, which is close to Gainesville here.
Mhm.
And the very first year, um, because of scheduling and all that kind of stuff, the attendance wasn't as much as what we had hoped. So we had gotten in touch with a friend of ours down in Tampa that helps with a hospital for kids with cancer, and we said, why don't you bring up some kids with their families and all this kind of, bring them up, and we'll put them up in the camp, and donate that as a thing for the kids. And it didn't even take a full day for us to realize this is what that's about. Like that's, I'm a believer. Like I believe in God. And for me, it's,
Mhm.
we all have different faiths. So I'm not speaking for the band. I'm simply
Mhm.
speaking for me. Um, I believe it was one of those God things where we had our idea of what it was going to be, and he had a whole different idea. And
Mhm.
that idea was for these kids to come with their siblings and their parents, and to have a weekend of getting their minds off having to deal with this horrible disease. And um, it was very crystal clear watching all of them go through the weekend and being able to forget all that stuff. And then not only that, but having people contribute to that cause. Whit Grossbeck, who is an owner of the Boston Celtics, he's a huge part of Camp Hazelnut. And
Wow.
yeah, oh yeah, he's and such a great guy. He's been a good friend of the band forever. And he comes up with these things to help these kids, and not only the kids, but the siblings of these kids who sometimes get lost in what
Mhm.
their family's going through. And so that became a really cool event for us as well. The pandemic shut that down, and so we're trying to work on bringing that back to life. But the year that the pandemic came out, it kind of put the kibosh on that for a minute. So we're
Mhm.
we're still trying to work out the kinks and get that back up and running. So, but we've always been very thankful to our fans, and like you said, our fans are extremely loyal, and we're just very thankful for the self-dubbed Hazelnuts.
Yes. What did you think when you heard that name? Like, would it just come
Oh, I
about
thought it
word
was
about?
perfect.
Yeah,
I thought it was
it really
perfect,
is.
and
Yeah.
and look, I don't think that I don't think it would have been beneficial for us to name a group of our fans like that,
Uh-huh.
but they came up with it themselves. And so it was like, that's perfect. You know what I mean? It was like that. It's awesome. So it has stuck, and it is, people wear that it's like a badge of honor, so
Yeah,
it's
I was
really
going to
cool.
say, when you go to a Sister Hazel show, you could just like feel the passion and the energy in the crowd. Like people will be wearing all their like merch from shows from years ago, or they'll have like
Yeah.
handmade shirts, or they'll have signs, and it's just
Yeah.
so cool to be in that like positive a place of people who just all love the same thing, and just like
Yeah.
all of you've used it for good too. I mean, that Camp Hazelnut story was so inspiring. I can understand how it means like when you're being a sick kid in the family. I it's not related to cancer, but I did have Lyme disease when I was 14, and through several years of my teenagehood, I was in a lot of treatment, and just the absolute stress, I mean, that it puts on the family, and to be
Yeah.
able to have that, where they can just, because I like was able to go to Disney one day, and then to just be able to have that thing on like what you guys did with the Camp Hazelnut, where you're not. sick. You're just being, and the fact that you're
Yes.
able to use your powers for good, I just think is just so inspiring. And I think it's just such
That's very kind. Thank you.
a
And
testament to you.
I'm glad that you're good and
Yes, I'm
healthy.
all good. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. That must have been quite a scary battle. So I'm glad you
Oh,
made it through that.
oh yeah, it was very scary, but I'm glad I'm on the other. I'm getting my master's now, and I think I'm gonna
Oh,
get my PhD soon. So yeah, things are going really well.
that's very cool. Great, great. Glad to hear that.
Awesome, thank you. And I just wanted to also talk about more about the rock boat because I love it. It fascinates me because I feel like almost it started, Sixth Man is the company, and it wasn't Rock Boat the first thing that Sixth Man put on, and now it's just become a huge tradition for all of these bands to do things similar. And I feel like the Rock Boat was really the pinnacle for that. But I also wanted to talk about, do you have any like favorite memories from that?
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting because so the rock boat uh, was actually our idea. So um, Andy Levine was our manager at the time, and the management company that he started was called Six Man. And
Hmm.
the reason it's called Six Man is because there were five band members and Sister Hazel, and he was the sixth man. So
Yes.
that's where that name came from. So Andy originally, for the first several rock boats, there wasn't, Six Man wasn't doing cruises at the time. He was just our manager. And we started the process. The very first one, we did not charter an entire cruise ship. We just took uh, a number of cabins, and we took one other band, Dexter Freebish, with us. And we did some shows, and that went so well that the next year we did charter the entire cruise ship. At that time, it was on Carnival, and we took out a number of bands, and it just continued to grow. And it was at some point that Andy said, "Hey, look, I want to go and just do this cruise thing. That's what I want to do." So he wanted to step down from management, so we had to get another manager, and he moved on to that. So we've been partners in that ever since. So really, the rock boat, we pioneered that entire industry with the rock boat, and it continues to be it kind of sets itself apart because of the uniqueness of it and the
Hmm.
vibe of it on the boat. And like you said, with the hazelnuts, it's just a different kind of community. All very connected, all heading the same direction for the same reason, and it's just such a great thing to be a part of. Um, but all the other ones, Kid Rock and Kiss and Zach Brown, and I mean Zach Brown he was on a lot of the first rock
Hmm.
boat, and he was on a one of the times we tried to do the rock slope, which was a kind of a sister to the rock boat, but it was up in the mountains going snow skiing. He was out on that one too. So, yeah, but it's something that we're really proud of. It was really cool the way it's built. It continues to go, and it's, not this year, but the next year we will have been doing it for 25 years. Like that, it'll be the
Wow.
25th year that our 25th event that we've done because we had to skip one year because of COVID,
Hmm.
but yeah, it has definitely been a feather in our cap, to say the least.
It's so cool. I just think it's awesome that it was, like I said, the first of all these events, and it just is such a unique idea. And I love that you highlight all your great friends as well, because you have so many talented friends. I mean, you mentioned Edwin McCain, and
Yeah.
I know Darius Rucker has done Lyrics for Life with you guys, and just so many good bands have been to all these events. And I think it's cool that you're able to have them come along with you for the ride.
Yeah, and another thing that's cool about the rock boat is um that the people there are different band members that stay closely involved, and then our creative side over at Six Man, they do a good job of going out and finding these younger bands that you may not have heard of yet, but when you leave the rock boat, they're going to be like your next favorite band. Um, you know, I can't tell you how many times we've had artists on the boat that have come back and said, "Hey, listen, because of the opportunity you gave us, every town that we go to, we have people holding up rock boat signs and stuff like that, and that's what's helped build our following." So that feels really good, and a tip of the cap goes to the people that help pick the bands that are going to be on the rock boat as well.
Yeah, it's like a C music festival, and I think that is so cool that you're able to introduce your audience to all that. I love it. Well, I think
Yeah.
we are running up a little bit on time here, and I just wanted to have some closing remarks. I wanted to talk about, so the album is coming out on November 15th, and then you
Okay.
have a few shows at the end of the year. I saw that you're playing Red Rocks. Is that your first time playing there?
No, we actually played there earlier in our career. We did 2 nights with the Allman Brothers
Oh,
out of
wow.
yeah,
Are
so it
you?
was a really special time, but it's kind of been one of our goals is to get back out there. So we're really excited to be out there with Dustin. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, with Dustin Lynch, you guys are going to be opening. And then anything else that we have to look forward to in addition to the new album and everything coming out?
The new album, and then like you say, we have the Rock Boat coming up in January, and we are continuing to do shows. We'll wrap up the year in Chicago like we always do at
Yep.
the House of Blues up there, and so we just continue to plug along. We're extremely grateful to have had a career for 30 years, and we just, as long as people keep connecting with the music, we'll probably keep plugging along.
Yes, and like I mentioned earlier to all the listeners, I really think that they are such a good live band, and you guys do play like Birmingham, Alabama. I know you've been to in this kind of North Mississippi area a few times. I've in Tupelo, and you go
Oh
to
yeah.
Nashville a lot, Memphis. So if you have the time to make that trip and to go see Sister Hazel, I highly recommend it. It's such a fun time. And Drew, it was just an honor having you on the show. I loved getting to talk with you and learn more about the band. This is just amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too. And hopefully I'll see you at a show soon.
That sounds great.